I was working in a hospital microbiology lab during the early days of COVID, at the time when there was still a bunch of uncertainty about what it was and how it affected people. A young patient came in who was very unwell. He was diagnosed with COVID and had been in the hospital for some time. He developed sepsis and had started to develop drug-resistant organisms. Our staff were in panic mode and assumed he had picked this bug up in the hospital. They had to begin the process of disinfecting the entire ward, screening all patients, staff, and areas to find out where it had come from. Everything came back negative. A few days later, one of the nurses was doing their rounds and witnessed a family member throwing some kind of liquid on the patient and wetting his mouth with it. We investigated further and found out it was holy water from the river Ganges. The water was sent to the lab found to contain excessive amounts of bacteria and brain-eating organisms. He didn't make it.
A doctor was delivering the baby via ventouse, a vacuum extraction. He was pulling, and you do honestly have to put some muscle into it. Those babies are stuck pretty fast in there sometimes. Anyway, the suction cap came off the baby's head. This happens a lot. The father of the baby thought that the doctor had pulled so hard that he had pulled the baby's head off, so naturally punched the doctor in the jaw, who went straight down to the ground like a felled tree. Much yelling ensued, people holding the father back, him realizing that the baby was fine once we pointed out that the head was still inside, unconscious doctor being pulled into a chair, another doctor coming in to do the delivery, the mother crying hysterically. We had to have a quick and frantic conversation at the midwife's station about whether to allow the father to remain in the room. We decided that from his vantage point, it may have appeared that the baby's headward had been removed and that he had a momentary loss of reason. He was also hugely apologetic and took responsibility for his actions. I worked on a cruise ship for a few seasons. I was in a position where if someone died, I knew about it. Most of the time, it's usually stuff like heart attacks, strokes, or aneurysms. Of course, everyone asks about jumpers, but it's not uncommon to go your whole career without experiencing someone going overboard. Cruise ships are built incredibly safe, and anyone going over has to do it under their own volition. It doesn't matter what you think. If you jump off the ship, there is a 98% chance you won't make it. The only survivors are people who jump off from the lower levels and/or when they are in port. If you jump in the middle of the ocean, the impact is like concrete. If that doesn't do it, you are going to drown as you fight against the buoyancy that is depleted by the churching on the boat. From the hypothermia, yes, even the warmest oceans, or from the sharks. We had a young man who was 4 days into a 10-day cruise and probably 7 days into a bender. He was with his girlfriend, but by this point he was already known by most the staff. He was removed from the casino after losing about $10,000 while verbally abusing the staff. He wasn't allowed at the nicer restaurants for his belligerent behavior. He was one strike away from being held in the brig. It was around 8:30 p.m. and the sun had just set when we got the man overboard call. He leapt from the lower level. By the time we got there, patrons had thrown everything they could find overboard to try pinpoint his location. He was nowhere to be found. We picked up the jump on our cameras. The screams once he hit the water, and reality set in, were bone-chilling.